just joining us there, we'll just give everybody a minute or two to join us. So this is one of our Euro Wisdom webinars with our Young Women for OR. So I just want to run through a little bit of our etiquette, and we have a very interesting schedule today and a lovely set of speakers. So first thing to remind you is that we're recording this webinar, and we hope to put it up on the Euro site afterwards so people can play it back. Today's Wisdom webinar is on Bilevel Optimization. So my name is Paula Carroll. I'm the chair of the Euro Wisdom Forum. Just to tell you a little bit about what our Wisdom Forum is all about. So it is an instrument of Euro, and it is a forum, and we aim to support, empower, and encourage the participation of all genders in operational research within the Euro community. So this is what we do. We're trying to advise and make recommendations to the executive and to the working groups and to the OR societies. We promote championing, networking and mentoring, and that's associated with today's initiative, which is giving visibility to young women at the early stages of their career in OR. And we're also aiming to promote a conversation about how OR can be utilised for creating a diverse and inclusive future. So there is a Euro Equality, Diversity and Inclusion policy on the Euro website, and that is progressing. So today's initiative is part of our Young Women for OR. So Wisdom operates by conducting some research and running some events. And one of our events is Young Women for OR. So it's a visibility initiative for young women at the early stages of their careers. So today's speakers are Asuncion, Marina and Martina. We had some of the other young women last March, and that webinar is up on the website, and we'll have the rest of them later in the year, and we have a couple of other events coming up. So today's talk, our speakers, they'll introduce themselves very, very briefly, and you've seen their information in our flyers. And our guest subject matter expert today, we're delighted to have Martine Labbe with us today. So Martine is going to do a little bit of an overview of the subject area and a response to the presentations by the young women. So our etiquette, we're going to ask everybody to stay on mute, to turn off their cameras when they're not the speaker. We'll have 10-minute presentations from each of the young women, followed by a discussion with Martine, and then we'll open to the floor so everybody can ask their questions. So I'm going to stop sharing there and pass over to Asuncion.
Yeah.
That's okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Excellent. Okay.
So I hope that you can see my...
You can see your screen. It's not in presentation mode yet.
Okay, so now...
There you go. Excellent. So you have 10 minutes. Off you go.
Okay, so thank you very much for the presentation, Paula. Well, before starting my presentation, I want to acknowledge all my co-authors, because without them, this work cannot be possible. And then now, without any more details, I'm going to give you the outline of this talk. So first of all, I want to introduce you a little bit the problems or the framework where I'm going to talk. Then in these 4 sections, I'm going to give you a brief overview of some bilevel optimization problems that I've been working on. And finally, some conclusions on further research. So in this talk, I'm going to talk to you about I'm going to give you a brief overview of 4 mathematical optimization approaches that I have been working in that select features using SVM classification via bilevel optimization tool. So the point is that I'm going to talk to you about some bilevel optimization models like this one, where we want to classify some kind of data that I will explain you later. And instead of having hyperplanes like this, I'm interested in having hyperplanes like this, where I select one of the features. So first of all, in this work, we work in a min-max approach where the number of features selected is not known a priori, and that by means of strong duality, we aim to obtain a model that can be solved just pressing a button of one of the commercial solvers. So this is the model that we have, where it's formed by 2 different parts. So this part here is devoted to maximizing the classification accuracy by means of the dual of the SVM problem. And then this first part here is devoted to minimizing the model complexity by minimizing this norm of this vector gamma that is nothing but the importance given to each feature. And then these two objectives are balanced using this convex combination by a trade-off parameter C2. So something about the numerical result that we have. So we have compared our approach here with three different strategies. The first one is what we call the no feature selection model, where we obtain comparative results. And the good point of our method is that we obtain very similar accuracy results, and also we have interpretability because we are performing feature selection. Then we compare our model with a benchmark algorithm from the literature, where we have to where they design an ad hoc strategy, and also we have comparative or competitive results, but our model does not need to design these ad hoc approaches. And finally, we compared this algorithm, but with just pressing the button of a solver, and it is clear that we obtain better results. And if you want to know more details about this about this work, you can see this paper where all the details are. In the second problem, well, so far we have focused on what we can say static data or multivariate data. So for each individual, we have a multivariate vector, but instead of this, now I'm focusing on what is called the functional data. So for each individual, we have now a function. For instance, in this case, we have the height of different people, sorry. And our contribution here is that what people usually do is that for classifying this data, people use a constant weight in the kernel function. And we observe that instead of having this constant weight, maybe we can obtain better results in terms of classification if we have a piecewise weight that give more importance to the parts of the time interval that are more important for classifying. And this is exactly what we do. So we introduce this functional bandwidth here, and among all the possible functions that we can include, we use this piecewise linear function, where we have to select the weights given for each piece, and also the points where we change from one piece to another. And we model it using a bilevel optimization model that we solve using as an alternating approach, where we maximizing here the correlation between the score and the level of the functions, and in the inner level program we have the SVM. And these are some of the numerical results where we have compared the classic SVM or the standard SVM with the constant weight, and also our approach for different pieces, so from 2 to 8. And we obtain these two data sets that I have selected here, and percentage of improvement in the accuracy between the 6% and the 10%. And this is the paper from EU, where you can find the details of the model. In the third approach, now we don't only focus in the univariate functional data, but we focus here in what we call the multivariate functional data. That is, for each individual, we don't only know just a single function, but we have a vector of functions that can mean, for instance, or can indicate, for instance, the height of a person, the weight, and I don't know, maybe the level of insulin in the blood. And we want to highlight that also we can consider as multivariate functional data not only the information given by 3 different functions, we can say, but the information given by one function, the first derivative, the second derivative, and the derivative of order t. So in this way, we don't only have the information given by this function, but also we include information about the concavity, the convexity, and these kind of things. And in this work, we consider as features the possible time instance, the possible points that are common to all the multivariate functional data, and that helps to select or to differentiate between the blue functions and the red functions. Here, for instance, we have selected this point here, But why we have to restrict ourselves to 1 point? Why don't we use 2 points? Or in the general case, why don't we select the 8 more important points that helps to classify the data? And to model this again, we use a very similar bilevel problem like the previous one that we also solve using an alternating approach, where we maximize the correlation. And here in the lower level problem, we have that alpha must solve the SVM problem, the dual of the SVM problem indeed. And in the numerical results here, you can see for different number of time instance, 3 curves that represent the accuracy when we use the information given only by the function and the first derivative, and by the function and the first and the second derivative. And we have compared these results using the information of the classic SVM, or using the information of all the time points. So we can see here that the larger the number of the derivative we use, the better the accuracy results. So that means that including information of high order derivative really helps to improve the accuracy of the results. And then here you can see again the paper where all the details are published. And the fourth approach, now we focus on what we call hybrid functional data. That are data that where the vector are not only formed by functions, but also by functions and static data, what we call static data. And this can represent, for instance, the height, the weight, and this, I don't know, maybe the shoe size of a person. And the point here is that we want to select which are among all the possible features, no matter whether they are functional or static, which are the more important ones to classify the data. And again, we do it by solving this bilevel optimization problem. And regarding the results, we select this data set here, where we have 5 functional features and 1 static feature, and we observe that and the results of our model select 1 of each type. So it seems that it doesn't matter which time, so it's not sensitive to the type of the feature. And this is the paper where this is published. And just to conclude, so I have shown you a very brief overview of different mathematical optimization problems that we propose for selecting features using SVM in functional and static data. And we obtain competitive results comparing with the rest of literature algorithms. And as further research, now I'm working on some data-driven approaches, and also on approaches that use the physics of the problem and how to combine machine learning and optimization-based approaches. And just if you want to know a little bit more about my work, you can check my thesis here, and also some papers that I have not enough time to show you. And these are some of the references. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was a fly through of lots of really interesting topics. So just to let everybody know, we won't take questions just now. We'll go through the rest of the talks, and then we'll come back for questions afterwards. So thank you very much. That was really interesting. I have my questions ready for afterwards. And next up we have Marina. So Marina, if you're ready, if you want to share your screen.
I share my screen.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you. Off you go.
Can you see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much, Paula. I'm looking forward to meet you all at the Euro. I'm going to tell you briefly about the problem that we are currently finishing, which is a bilevel optimization model for feature selection in hierarchical clustering. It's a joint work with Martine Labbe and Mercedes Landete. So I am going to follow this outline. I will start with the introduction, then I will present the model, and then I will tell you some things about how we solve this problem. So you may have seen trees like this, in which we have different items or observations, or like in this case, states that are linked at different levels. So this type of trees are called dendrograms, and they are trees that represent, as I said, connections of objects at different levels. These dendrograms are the result of a hierarchical clustering technique. Hierarchical clustering is an unsupervised clustering technique that is commonly used when the number of groups that we want to create is unknown a priori, and we know that there exist some relationships between the objects. So as I said, the output that we get when we apply hierarchical clustering is a dendrogram. Then in these dendrograms, the individuals are connected depending on their similarity. The sooner they are connected, the more similar they are. For instance, here, if we see these two states that are connected very soon or a very low height in the dendrogram, it means that these are very similar. But if we see, for instance, this here and this other here, they are connected very late in the dendrogram, which means that according to the criteria that we are considering, they are very different. So once we have this dendrogram, we can create clusters by making cuts in the tree in such a way that the individuals that are linked between, below the cut, they remain in the same cluster. For instance, here, if we make this cut at this height, we can see that we have four different clusters, each one in a different color. So all these states would be in the same cluster, this other, this, and this, because below this line, they are connected. So commonly, these dendrograms are constructed by using algorithms to create them. But it is known there exists a result in the literature in this paper that you see here that tells or that proves that these dendrograms can be obtained by also solving the minimum spanning tree problem. All the information that we need to construct a dendrogram is contained in their minimum spanning tree. So we are going to use this result, and for us, constructing a dendrogram will be equivalent to finding the minimum spanning tree. So let's go to the model that we propose. To construct these dendrograms, it has been classically assumed that for each two individuals, we have a distance, which we call C, between them. But we know that nowadays we have a huge number of databases that contains really a lot of information about the items. So what we are going to assume is that we have K features for which we measured for each two individuals a distance for each of the features. So we will have for each I and J individuals, we will have a distance between them for each of the features. So what we are going to consider, or what we propose, is a model in which we want to select a subset of these features in such a way that the dendrogram that we construct, that is for us the minimum spanning tree that we construct, is the best one according to some criteria. We can consider a lot of different criteria. The first one that we consider, which is a simple one, it's to consider the dendrogram with the smallest total distance. That is, if we add all the distances of the tree, we want to have the smallest possible one. So we will have a bilevel model like this, in which we have only two families of variables, the y variables, that would be the feature selection variables. Each y will take value 1 if feature k is selected, and then we will have the x variables, which are the variables that will define the tree. So here we can see that we want to minimize this total cost of this total distance of the tree, which is given by the cost of the feature if the feature is selected and if the two individuals are connected in the tree. Then we have that we select P of these features, and then we have that the X must define a tree. We can use any of the formulation to get a minimum spanning tree. So we proved that this problem is NP hard, so it's hard to solve. So to start to try to solve this problem, what we did is to write a single level reformulation, but this is very easy here because we can see that the objective function that we have in the upper level is the same objective function that we have in the lower level. Then in this bilevel model, we do not need to include this constraint that the x must be the minimum of the minimum of this objective function, because we already have it in the upper level. So we only need to include the constraints that impose that we define a tree. So we have this single level reformulation. Of course, we have products of variables here that we need to linearize, but we can easily do it. So once we have this single level reformulation of the feature selection minimum spanning tree, what we did was to propose some valid inequalities and a decomposition algorithm. For instance, to give you an idea on how difficult it is to solve this problem, for instance, if we consider instances with 60 individuals, 6 features, and we want to select only 3 of them, this problem could not be solved with Gurobi within the time limit of 30 minutes. So we have a time limitation to solve this problem. So the first thing that we did, and I'm not going to go, of course, in details on it, we defined a lot of valid inequalities for our model that help us to reduce the times and the gap for the model. So we got some improvement by using these valid inequalities. But the best thing for us to solve this problem was to use a decomposition algorithm. If we see this model, we carefully see this model, it is easy to see that we have here like 2 typical or 2 classical problems included here, which is the knapsack problem and the minimum spanning tree problem, which we know that there exist algorithms that can solve these 2 problems separately fast. So we wanted to take advantage of this structure of the problem, and we proposed that the decomposition algorithm, that I'm not going to give you details, to split this problem into and take advantage of these fast algorithms. In fact, if we consider them separately, we can relax the binary constraint. So this is an ideal problem for decomposition, and the best thing for us, because the composition I will show you now, that didn't work very, very well, but the best thing for us was to combine this decomposition idea with the valid inequalities that we developed. So I show you here briefly some results. Here are the sizes of the instances that we consider. These are small instances because we only wanted to solve it with the exact formulation, but we also tried with bigger instances. So if we go to small instances, we can get, we can solve it. This is the exact formulation. So we can see that we can solve it quickly with the exact formulation, but when the size of the instance increases, then we need some more time with the exact formulation. Here in this column, I show you the number of iterations that the algorithm, the decomposition algorithm would need in the worst case, which would be something equivalent to solve the problem by enumeration. So if we consider only the decomposition algorithm that we propose, in most of the cases, we need to do all the iterations, and so we need also some time to solve this algorithm. But when we combine the valid inequalities that we develop, some of them, and the decomposition algorithm, you can see that we can solve the problem very fast. And for instance, here that we would need more than 200 iterations, this algorithm with the valid inequalities can find it very fast with only 56, for instance, and 25 seconds. We also compared, I'm not going, I think it's almost 10 minutes. So we also compared,
Marina, thank you.
Yes, I just finished now. So we also compare, I'm not going to go in details in this, but we compare how our feature selection model work in comparison if we make this dendrogram by using all the features. And I can tell you that we got very good results. So for until more or less 40 clusters, the clusters that we defined were very similar to the ones that would be defined if all the features are selected. So that's all. I will tell a bit more about this at Euro. So if you have any question, I will be very happy to answer you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marina. That was really interesting. So lots of interesting topics this morning. We're not going to take Marina's questions just now. We're going to go straight on to Martina, if that's okay. And then after that, we'll have some discussion with Martine. So Martina,
yes,
I'm trying to.
Yeah, I'm trying to share the screen.
It's coming up now.
Is it?
Not yet.
I'm trying to share, but apparently it's not working. We just tested it, so it's strange.
Yeah, maybe just stop sharing and then start again.
Yeah, no, it's blocked in the window where I have to click to share. I don't know why. Share. I'm sorry. Maybe I have to close the Zoom because I can't click anything. So
okay,
just
you rejoin us as quick as you can, and what we'll do
while
we're waiting for you to rejoin us.
I'm sorry.
No problem. It's fine. The technology does that to us every so often. Take your time. So if you want to drop out and rejoin, we'll let you.
The problem is that I cannot drop because there's this window open with the sharing. Sorry. I'm looking for so.
Okay, I think. Do you want to drop
out? Can you drop me like?
Drop you, throw you out. Okay, that's very, very rude of us, but we'll eject you for a second.
Yeah.
And hopefully, Nuncia, can you do that there? There we go. So hopefully Martina will be able to join us again. But just while we're waiting, Marina, your presentation is fresh in my head. So selecting the number of features P. So I'm going to jump in and use the time to ask a question. So you showed those slides at the end.
Yes.
Was there sort of a linear relationship, or choosing the optimal value of P?
Yeah, we use the Wallace measure that measures the probability that two items that are together in a cluster, in one clustering, the probability that these two items are in the same clustering in the case that we are considering this feature selection model. So this probability is above 0.6 for until in this instance that I consider around 40 groups. So in 40 groups, with the probability that we have that two items that are in the same cluster, when we consider all the features, it's higher than 0.5 in our model also.
Okay, so it's a conditional probability based on the membership. Sorry, a conditional probability based on the features. A conditional probability of the membership based on the feature. No?
It's not exactly based on the features. It's if we consider all the features and we make clustering using this hierarchical clustering, we get some clusters.
Mm-hmm.
And some items are in the same cluster. So we check how similar or how probable is that these two items are in the same cluster if we consider only the P features that we select.
Okay, so it's the group of features.
Yes, so if we increase this P, the number of features that we include in tandems, we have more similar clusters, but it's not always the case.
Okay. I don't see Martina having rejoined us yet, so I'm wondering, Martine, would you like to maybe do some of your discussion now? I don't know, has she come back yet, Nuncia?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, that's very unfortunate. Those technical difficulties, they're very stressful, so hopefully she can get it sorted. Martine, will I hand over to you for a few minutes?
Okay. Well, maybe I will go through question regarding the two presentations, and then I will do some different comments after Martina's talk.
Exactly. So hopefully she'll come back soon. So I might interrupt you if she can come back.
Okay. So some more technical question just for Asun first. So yes. you get different nice, interesting model and consider different problem regarding feature selection for SVM. And what I saw, the second level is an SVM problem, right?
Yeah.
So you use, this is a convex problem?
Yeah.
And so do you use the classical KKT reformulation to get the single level optimization problem, or what kind of approach do you use?
In the first one, in the first approach, which is not related with the functional data. So what we use is a strong duality concept. So basically what we do is we compute again we compute the dual of the dual of the SVM problem. So we get a minimization problem in the lower level. And then using the epigraph form of this problem, we can formulate all of them as a single level optimization problem, and then just pressing the button, as I said. Yeah.
Okay, is it related to the optimal value function?
It is. What do you mean?
I mean, there is another way to reformulate bi-level problems. For the second level, you use the optimal value function of the second level.
No, we just use the dual of the dual.
Okay, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting. Martina is writing me if you can allow her to reconnect, because I think she's waiting.
Francia, can you see her in the waiting room?
No, I can't.
Okay, tell her.
Ah, okay. Unfortunately, since we've removed her, she can't enter again. That is unfortunate. Yeah, so if she tries with another email address, and hopefully we'll be able to let her back in a minute or two. So sorry.
So should I tell her something?
No, it's okay. Nunzi is in communication with her. Okay,
shall I go with a couple of other questions?
Yes, please, Martine.
I was wondering also, in the problem that you consider, what these are SVM problems, so these are quantitative data. What would you do if you have ordinal data? So you have for each observation you have a vector, but the entries are discrete.
The entries are discrete. Yeah, so you don't have the function. Okay, so at the end of the day, what you have is like a vector of, I don't know, thousand of points. Yeah, that represent this function.
Yeah. So what you do in this case? So for instance, one data would be a color, so not even order. You see, it can be white, blue, green. Well, you can of course assign a number to each of them, but there's no really relation between them, and some other maybe also discrete. Can you adapt your approach for this kind of situation?
I'm not sure, but in this case, if I understand you properly, so in this case, there is no relationship between one point and the other one. So because you are talking about colors, so you are talking about a vector that are like red, blue, and green, I don't know. But there is
entry. One coordinate of the vector can be a color, for instance, and another one can be the number of children. So it's a discrete.
But you are talking about categorical variables.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, but our approach is not design, or we are not thinking about data that are categorical values, but about data that even if when you code them, they are like discrete values, but you have a continuity in some way. So you know that one point is related somehow with the previous one and with the other one. So you don't have this in the categorical data. I don't know if you get what I mean. Yeah.
Asuna, Martine, thank you for that. I'm going to interrupt you for 2 seconds because we have Martina back. So we'll ask Martina to do her presentation, and then we'll resume the really interesting discussion. Is that okay? So Martina, are you there? I thought she was back.
Yeah, she joined for a second, so I thought she was.
Maybe she's dropped again.
Yeah, okay, so apologies for this, but yeah, probably we shall continue the discussion.
Sorry, we'll resume the discussion until we get her back one more time. Martine, you probably have more questions, or you ready to go? You're muted, Martine.
No.
Martine, you're muted.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
One more question for Asuncion. You, in your conclusion, you talked about combining machine learning and optimization approach.
Yeah.
How would you do this? And yeah, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is not related with the bilevel optimization problem, but with we can say data-driven approaches. Well, we are working now in a problem where we want to improve the performance of the MILP problems of mixed integral linear programs by deleting some or by removing some constraints that we know by historical data that are always satisfied. So in this way, we have a reduced problem that hopefully it will be easy to solve. And how we do that? So in this case, we create a classification problem based on the historical data saying that one constraint must belong, so level 1, to the MILP problem or not, so level 0. And we train our model, our instances with this data.
Okay, I see. That's interesting. So some people do the other way around. I would say they try to reduce the space of the
Number of variables. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is something like the dual. I think that Andrea Lodi has one paper of this applied to facility location problem. Yeah, it's like the dual of what we are doing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also some people do for when you want to reduce the dimension of the variable vector, also they do kind of projection. You see, you can project the problem into a smaller space. I was wondering whether there is something that could be done also in this way, I would say, for constraints. I don't know.
Maybe I didn't check this possibility, but I will write it down because I think it can be very useful. So thank you for the proposal.
You're welcome. Okay, so shall I go on, or is Martina back?
We still don't have Martina, so if she comes back, we'll let you know, and we'll try and join her in. But if you have more,
I
there she is.
Just interrupt for a second. She's here, but by phone. So
I'm here using my phone because using laptop, it says that the host removed me, so I can't connect. So I sent my slides to Marina just so that she can share them, because I don't have
the
them.
slides. You simply say next and I change, okay?
Yes, I'm just now.
Wonderful. This is an excellent way to collaborate. So Marina, off you go again. Thank you.
I am very sorry. I don't know what happened.
No problem. So okay, you have 10 minutes. Off you go.
Yes. Okay. So sorry again. So I will present this ongoing work. It is a joint work with 3 other women, Claudia Archetti and Ivana Ljubik from ESSEC, because my current affiliation is ESSEC Business School, and Elena Fernandez from University of Cadiz. It is about a pricing and routing problem that we modeled using bilevel programming. So Marina, please. So we have a set of items which needs to be delivered to a set of customers. And we said that each customer has one item. So we can speak about customers and items in the same way. And there is a routing network connecting all the customers. There are 2 main agents. So there is a company which is acting as a leader in our bilevel framework. which receives a price PI for each item to be delivered. Then there is a set of carriers, and we assume that the company is looking for carriers that accept to deliver subsets of the set of item I, and also can decide on the price of each delivered item for each carrier, so PIK bar. So we have a leader and a follower. The leader is the company, which will decide on the set of items PK to serve to each carrier K, and also a price for each item PIK. Then we have, as followers, K carriers. Each of them receives the proposal by the leader, and based on her net profit can decide what is the subset that we will call QI of PK that she accepts to serve. So both the leader and the follower has the same goal. So as in the next slide, yes, the goal of the carrier is to maximize the net profit that is determined as the difference among the collected profit, P bar IK, for each I that is accepted, minus the total routing cost. For the leader, again, we have the maximization of the profit, but in this, the net profit, but in this case, it is given by the difference among the PI, which is the price of item I, minus the P bar IK, which is the price that the leader assigned to item I for carrier K. We assume that we are not, the leader cannot decide directly on P bar K, but we say that the leader can decide on the profit margin that the leader can gain for each item. So we assume that there are M different categories of profit margins, where the margin is next. Is given by this ratio, so this difference here, PI minus PI bar K, divided by PI. So this is the profit margin. So the difference in red that we have in our objective function is equal to MPI that we will call next PMI, since both the margin M and PI are constant. So what are the decision variables for one of the models that we are trying to test? So we have XIK, which is the upper level variable, which is equal to 1 if the company decides to offer to carrier K to serve the specific item I. So if I is in the set PK, YIK is a binary variable, a lower level binary variable, which is equal to 1 if carrier K accepts to serve item I. So if I is in the set QK. Then we have ZIJ, which is equal to 1 if a certain arc IJ is traversed by carrier K. And finally, we also need another binary variable, which says if the margin selected by the leader for a certain item and for a certain carrier is exactly the margin M. So we have these 4 variables. Our bilevel problem will look in this way. So at the objective function, we have the maximization of the net profit. So we have to count in this function PMI only if the margin selected is equal to M and if the carrier K accepts to serve the item I. So if alpha and Y are equal to 1. Then we have that for each item, the first constraint in saying that it should be delivered by at most 1 carrier. So not necessarily 1. We can also decide not to deliver that item, but at most 1 carrier needs to deliver it. And finally, if we deliver that, if we decide to deliver, to assign that item to a carrier K, we have to select exactly 1 margin. So take, for example, 3 categories of margin, high, low, and medium. And so we say that the margin should be 1 of these 3. Then we have that the variable Y, which is saying what are the items accepted by each carrier K, should be in the argmax of this phi, which is the optimal solution of the lower level problem of carrier K, which is in the next slide. and looks in this way. So we have the maximization of the net profit. So the profit derived by the price of the collected item minus the routing cost. We have that Y and Z are forming a route. And we also need to impose that our Y can be 1 only if X is equal to 1, which means that we can, a carrier can deliver a certain item only if that item is assigned to carrier K by the leader. So if X tilde is equal to 1. So our problem in the next slide, we saw that there are different bilinear terms given by the multiplication among alpha and Y, and we can linearize them using these additional variables, W, which is equal to this product, and adding the famous McCormick inequalities to our model. So the model that we are going to focus on, it looks in this way. So we have the upper level problem with the McCormick inequality. Then next we have these feasible, if you go on with the slides, we have this feasible set of the lower level. And then we have the constraint representing the value function reformulation. So we have that the objective function value of the lower level in the upper level should be greater than or equal to its optimal value. So if you go next, Marina. Okay, how we can deal with this value function constraint? We assume we introduce this proposition, which says that it always exists an optimal solution of this problem here in this blue block, which is also optimal for our follower problem. So here, what is the difference in this problem? The difference is that we don't have the constraint Y less than or equal to X tilde, but we move the, let's say, X tilde in the objective function. And we have that, we proved that let's say, solving this problem is equivalent to solving our original lower level problem. So next slide. We need to introduce this problem because in this way we can consider the set Pxk, which is the set of all the extreme point of the convex hull of the feasible solution of that problem in the blue block, and we can write that problem in this way. So the maximum over all the pairs y, z in this extreme point set of the objective function. It is a convex function in X and alpha, and we can use it to replace the value function constraints for each k by these inequalities that the left-hand side is exactly the same as the value function constraint. The right-hand side is given by the objective function of this problem, and we need to impose it for each pair yz in this set Px. So what we obtain in this way, a single level reformulation, but next slide, it is, we have an exponential number of constraints of this type. How we deal with this exponential number? We consider the master problem obtained by relaxing this exponential number. We obtain a certain solution of the master. We plug it into the lower level. We solve it, and we obtain a certain solution that we call hat y hat z, and a certain optimal value hat phi. So in the next slide, we can see that if there exists, if for all the k, we have that our function in the left-hand side is greater than or equal to the optimal value phi hat of the problem that we just solved, then we obtain a bilevel optimal solution. Otherwise, we have to add this cut. So if for a k for which this inequality is not satisfied, we have to add this cut here, which is exactly the cut that we just introduced with the right-hand side, including x in the objective function. And with this trick, we can solve our problem. So in our work, we are trying to test different problems with these different formulations. We are trying to project out the z variables in the upper level, and we are trying to see what is the best in terms of efficiency among the models that we are trying to test. And that's it. So we did it. Thank you for your attention.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Martina, and thank you, Marina, as well for supporting that. I'm sure that was stressful, Martina. It's always difficult when the technology goes, but maybe we'll just pass back to Martine for a couple of minutes for some discussion, and then we might throw open to the floor to see if anybody has any points they want to make. Martine,
Okay.
over to you.
Thank you, Paula. First of all, I'd like to comment a little bit about wisdom. I love the initiative. I think it's very good, and we need more to support young women in our discipline. This is a very important thing, that the women, or we, are very active. We continue research, and especially the young ones, please do not give up. I have seen so many young researchers, female researchers, who after the PhD give up. And I find this awful. I mean, we all have the same capabilities, and we should keep on. We are extremely good, and please keep up and continue. This is my word, and I really encourage you. And if you need any help or whatever, I would be always available, because I find it extremely important. This is the first thing I wanted to say. Okay, so next, first maybe, and second, let's say a few words about bilevel optimization. It's very nice, of course, to see that this is now a hot topic. I've been working on this for a while, and I see now it's booming somehow. And this makes total sense, because of course there are so many potential application of this framework. As we have seen here, we had 2 papers about feature selection, then a paper about routing or decentralized system optimization, I would say. And there are so many applications. There is so much potential in bilevel optimization that I think this is really nice. Now, this is difficult. These are, I mean, bilevel optimization problems are harder than single level optimization problems, of course. But I think we have been doing very much progress over the last years, the last 10 years, maybe in the field. But it also, we have obtained results that show that those problems are even more difficult than what we thought at first glance, maybe. And so we do progress. And I think this is the usual way in research, in science. You learn more, you discover better property, interesting property that you can exploit, but also you discover some deadlock, and it's very important to work on these. So congratulations to the 3 of you. I think you gave very nice talks, excellent, you're doing excellent research, and please keep on, and let's continue in this avenue. Okay, so I had already my question regarding Asun's presentation. Then I will go on with Marina. First of all, also this is a 3 women work. I'm co-author, but there is Mercedes Landete also. And even more, I would say, just for the fun of it, we call it the ML Cube paper, because it's Marina Leal, Martine Labbe, and Mercedes Landete. So this is just a funny comment. Now, I have nevertheless some question for Marina. I was wondering, in this problem, presently the second level is a tree, so we consider the whole dendrogram. But now imagine that we would like to, we know that we want to have a limited number of a certain number of clusters. how could we take this into consideration into the problem to have upper or lower bound on the number of clusters that we would build with this kind of approach?
I am not sure, because when you have a dendrogram, when you use this hierarchical clustering, you always do the clustering a posteriori, after you have the dendrogram. So construct this dendrogram, taking into account the number of groups that we want to do. It's difficult, because depending on the level where we do the cut, we will have different numbers of groups. So I'm not sure if we can include this as a part of the optimization problem. Maybe we can think about that, but now I don't know how to do it.
Okay, let's think about it. Okay, and another thing, well, this problem that you presented as a bi-level optimization problem, in fact, is a single level optimization problem. Would there be other related problems or other objectives that would lead to really some bi-level optimization problem?
Yes. Well, as you know, we started with this one because it's the simplest one. But I would like, I told before to Paula that we use this Wallace measure, that it's commonly used to compare dendrograms. I would like to include a measure like this as a part of the problem. I mean, to select the features, taking into account that we would like to create clusters similar to those ones that would be created if we consider all the information, or maybe also some objective function that allow us to detect which are these features that are more relevant to create the clusters, or if there are some noisy features that are not helping to create this. Of course, this is the next step, and that would be really bi-level models, and then they would be difficult to solve.
Martine and Marina and everyone, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second, because we promised people we'd keep to an hour. So I know some people may need to drop out, but if we could ask people maybe for a second to turn on your cameras, and we'll get a screenshot. And then if people are able, we can stay on another little bit longer. But if anybody would like to turn on their camera. I did want to tell you about our next events. So our major next event is Euro, which is coming up. So who mentioned? Marina, I think, mentioned. So at Euro, we'll be participating in a round table on research funding with the other forums, but we'll also have our Young Women for OR. They'll have their special sessions in addition to their ordinary talks. And we will also have Nuncia, who's here, will present the results of the survey that we conducted at Euro last year. So Martine, thank you for your lovely comments about wisdom, which I think we all echo. So if anybody else there would like to turn on their camera, we will try and get a screenshot. So we have a PR subcommittee who try and disseminate. So we know dissemination is important, visibility is important. So feel free to take your screenshots there, and you can post those on your social media. Excellent. So we're just exactly at the hour. So if anybody feels they need to drop out, fine. But if Martine can stay for another couple of minutes, we'll borrow a little bit more of her time, if that's okay. So Martine, I had interrupted you and you were talking to Marina. But maybe if you have any quick questions or comments for Martina.
Yes, I have a question for Martina also, of course. Well, first, thank you for this very interesting talk as well. You consider somehow discrete price, because you have a given number of possible margins. I understand why somehow, because if you would have continuous price, it would become a mess. You have product of continuous variables or continuous and 0-1 variables. But I was wondering, are you sure that there is no property that would allow you to conclude that in an optimal solution, well, that there is a finite set of possible optimal margin?
I mean, you're saying that we could also like consider continuous prices the thing is that this is an ongoing work. So we first started without pricing, so just with the assignment of the items and then the accepting or not the offers. Then we said, okay, let's try also to add a complication. So try to consider different profit margins. And then next step will be exactly to try to consider the price as variables to see if we can try to find some properties to deal with these products among variables.
Okay, may I ask one more question, Paula?
Yes.
And the last thing, in this kind of problem, in reality, usually people do not want to share information because there is competition involved. And so here you assume that the leader is fully aware about the cost of the followers, of his behavior, knows precisely how he is going to behave. This, from a realistic point of view, do you think this is the good way, or from a reality point of view, or do you think the model should be adapted to take this lack of information into account?
Yes, up to now we are just considering as cost the distance among the customers. So just let's say, I think that is it. So, but we already thought about this, and maybe we will try to find a way to consider this lack of information in our model. Yes, this is a good point. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Martine.
All great presentations. So Paula, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Martine.
Paula, can I just take 1 minute to thank Marina for her
yes,
help?
You can.
And I am very sorry for this issue. It's the very first time that happens, but I hope
it must have been stressful for you as well. So well done on being composed, giving your talk after all the technical difficulties. And thank you, Marina. And we are.
You don't need to say thank you to me, of course.
We are looking forward to meeting in person in Euro. So our next event will actually be in Espoo in Finland in July. I will just very briefly, while I have you there, just share our last slide very quickly, just tell you what's coming up next. So in Euro, we'll have our research funding, and it goes back to what Martine was saying about persevering. So the next steps along the ladder, we hope within the Wisdom Forum that we can provide some support and some ideas about how people can perform the next steps. And that includes things like getting your own research funding. So we'll have a roundtable. Oh, and I'm looking at my typos there. Ignore that. We'll have a very interesting discussion on funding. And then the young women will have their sessions, and Nuncia will present some of the survey results. So we conducted a survey at Euro last year. And then later in the year, the other young women for OR will present in September on production logistics and game theory, and in November on city logistics and mobility. And then we hope we'll have an in-person event, a wisdom event in December. Other things to tell you about, we've got bits and pieces of research ongoing. So we have a white paper on the website, and we are continuing our work on looking at things like co-authorship networks in OR. So there's contact details there as well for how to keep in touch with us. And last thing to say is thank you very, very much indeed. If I can again to Martine. So Martine is a very, very busy lady, but she also always manages to share her time and expertise. So a huge thank you to Martine for her inputs today. And also thank you to the Wisdom Subcommittee members, without whom none of these things happen. So we have a PR subcom. Özlem isn't with us today, but she manages all of the links for the webinars, and Nuncia is there somewhere as well. So thank you to all of the Wisdom subcom. So I see Renata is there, Dolores was there. Without them, all these things don't happen. So a huge thank you to them. So I will stop sharing.